Picture being in a studio audience, holding your breath for a live TV show promising honest truths from the Brown family. You're anticipating some stammering responses, possibly some strained grins, possibly even some scripted lines from Kody about family unity, and what ensues. Nobody, not even Kody himself, could have anticipated. Because on that evening, Christine Brown did not appear for an interview. She arrived at a confrontation. And she did it on national television, in front of the entire world, where each word, each hesitation, and each discovery would resonate far beyond that platform. It began modestly. The host casually threw out a question regarding the changes in life since Christine left the plural marriage. Kody leaned in, obviously poised with a rambling response, his tone taking on that same old condescending attitude. He snickered as if he were still in charge. Home viewers believed they knew where the question was going. Then Christine jumped in. She spoke in a calm, cutting, near-surgical tone. "Kody," she said, holding his gaze in a manner that brought the room to a halt. "You want others to think you were the one in charge. But the reality, you lost your grip years ago." That was when the air changed. Gasps were heard from the crowd. Kody blinked, his jaw clenched like he'd just been struck by something he couldn't avoid. And suddenly, Christine had turned the tables. What followed was nothing short of dynamite. Christine did not shout, and she didn't have to. She rather unfolded layer by layer of secrets the world had never known before. She told of the nights of abandonment, of cold words, of how her love was made contingent, when someone else was lavished with attention and affection. Her voice was not bitter. It was firm. This wasn't rage. It was truth. And the viewers could sense it. Social media went wild in real time. Insults flowed in quicker than producers could even keep up with. "She's finally calling him out. Kody is so scared now. This is Christine's time. And she's not holding anything back." But just when the audience believed Christine had made her strongest jab, she went even stronger. She began discussing the children, about how they grew up witnessing favoritism tear their household apart. About how a father's neglect wasn't about ignoring a wife, but about wounding children who questioned whether or not they'd ever be enough. The studio went quiet, even the host appeared shaken. Christine's voice shook a little as she spoke of things that had never been told on television. Things about children left wondering they were worth anything, while Kody kept his head high, acting like he had been all of their father. Viewers at home couldn't turn away. The reality was raw, and it was undeniable. And then the line that made headlines on every platform in minutes. "You can raise your voice, Kody. You can try to interrupt me. But you will never silence the truth again." Those words struck like a thunderclap. The crowd exploded. Kody stood frozen. And the cameras recorded it all. From there, Christine's bombshell ran away with itself, and nothing could stop it. She exposed intimate fights, broken vows, moments never heard. She reminded Kody in his face of the times he informed her she would always have to work for his love. She colored the portrait of a man craving domination, but incapable of offering the most fundamental respect to those who trusted him. And the more she talked, the weaker Kody stood. His defenses shattered, his laughter feeble, his bravado dissipating with each bombshell Christine exposed. Fans saw a man who once controlled the family story totally disintegrate in front of the cameras. By the time Christine leaned back in her seat, the world had already taken sides. Hashtags #Christine wins and #Kody exposed were going ballistic on social media. Footage of her best quotes was being cut, posted, and replayed millions of times. And Kody, he remained silent in shock, appearing like a man who had just seen his empire fall before his very eyes. And this is the section that will have you stuck. Christine's revenge wasn't about devastation. It was about liberation. About speaking the truth so loudly that there was no going back. But what she exposed in the latter half of that live broadcast, that was the moment that not only shattered Kody's reputation, but altered the whole Sister Wives narrative forever. Stay tuned, because in the next part, you'll hear the bombshells Christine dropped, that even the producers didn't see coming. Bombshells that fans are still talking about. And ones that left Kody with nowhere to hide. The cameras flickered on, the studio lights glared bright, and the atmosphere in the room shifted from casual chatter to heavy anticipation. The in-person viewers leaned forward in their seats, gazing intently at the stage upon which two individuals were soon to clash in a manner no one could have anticipated. Kody Brown, the man who had long been posing himself as the cocky, invincible patriarch of Sister Wives, leaned back into his chair, adjusting his jacket and sporting the same tight grin he'd been wearing for decades. This was yet another opportunity for him to write the script anew, to make the world believe that he was the leader still, the man in charge. But facing him was Christine Brown, his ex-wife, his long-muted opponent, and the woman who had left behind his tightly managed universe. She didn't squirm, she didn't smile, she sat poised and serene, with an unspoken fire burning in her eyes that suggested she had come for something greater than civility. The host, unaware of the storm about to erupt, opened with the kind of easy, surface-level question that often starts these interviews. So Christine, how has life changed since your departure from the family dynamic? The crowd murmured softly, expecting a safe, generic answer about independence, healing, or moving forward. Kody leaned in first, prepared to take over. His tone resounded with arrogance as he started. Well, you know, the family has always been all about togetherness. It's about being there for each other no matter what. Christine, of course, has her opinion. And then it happened. Christine lifted her hand a little, interrupting him, not harshly but firmly. Her tone was steady, measured, and keener than anyone had ever heard. Kody, you wish others to think that you were always the one in charge, she said, her gaze fixed on his. But the thing is, you lost control years ago. The crowd gasped, even the host's eyes opened in shock. The studio, buzzing with expectation mere moments before, was now frozen in silence as if dropped there. Kody blinked hard, his red face growing redder as the corners of his mouth trembled in search for the right words. This wasn't the way it was meant to be. He was the one who owned the script, the one who had silenced opposition in the family for decades. But Christine wasn't here to respond to questions. She was here to reveal. And viewers at home would know it in an instant. Twitter would be lighting up seconds after she spoke, with responses pouring in. Did she just say that on TV? Christine is not messing around. Kody looks like he's been blindsided. Christine leaned in slightly, her own voice calm and collected, contrasting strongly with the alarm flashing across Kody's face. She did not yell, and she did not need to. Each word that she said struck like a dagger, deliberate and calculated. You have been informing the world for decades now that you were the leader, the glue, the one who kept this family intact. But it was actually crumbling in real life, and you weren't willing to acknowledge it. Or perhaps you did not care. The host shifted uncomfortably, obviously not knowing how to intervene. But Christine continued. She told of sleepless nights, of vows given and shattered, of the perpetual feeling of being brushed aside, as Kody gave his all to one relationship at the cost of all the rest. The heads of the audience swiveled back and forth between them, as onlookers at a game where one team had arrived utterly unready. Kody attempted to take back over, his voice growing louder as he jumped in. That's not true, Christine. You know Christine shut him down with a simple statement that went viral in an instant. You can raise your voice, Kody, but you can't silence the truth. The room was filled with gasps, cheers, and brief applause. The host tried to silence the crowd with an upraised hand, but it was too late. Christine had made the first swipe, and the atmosphere in the room was no longer neutral. Viewers at home huddled closer to their televisions, eager for more. They weren't viewing just a dialogue, nearly 8 years in the making. And Christine, once pictured as the mousy, submissive wife, was holding court as if she'd been waiting her whole life for this moment. She started recounting certain instances during their marriage that had never been disclosed on the show. Moments when she had begged for help only to be shown indifference. Brawls where she was reminded her feelings were overreactions. Instances when she was belittled so Kody could be bigger. Her voice wasn't shaking with rage. It was steady with conviction. The power of her truth wasn't in shouting but in refusing to be dismissed. The audience hung on every word, and social media platforms exploded with commentary. She's exposing him live. Finally, the truth we've all been waiting for. Kody's face says it all. He knows he's done. Kody shifted uncomfortably in his seat, pulling at his collar, producing a laugh that felt brittle and hollow. You're dramatizing, Christine. You always did have a sense of drama. This is not the way things went down. Christine leaned forward ever so slightly, her face unruffled but unyielding. Exaggerating, Kody, I'm speaking the truth that no one ever saw, because you ensured the cameras never recorded it. You didn't only ignore me, you ignored our children. Do you think they didn't realize the way you played favorites? Do you think they didn't feel invisible when you only cared about one home? That was the moment the studio's energy completely shifted. The audience let out a collective gasp, some even shaking their heads in disbelief. The host stammered, trying to interject, but Christine's words drowned out everything else. Kody's face darkened. This isn't fair, Christine. You're twisting things to make yourself look like a victim. Christine sat back, unruffled by his trying to discredit her. No, Kody, I don't have to twist anything. The truth needs no defending. Her composure, her dignity, her capacity to tear down his defenses without shouting. It all had Kody stumbling. And for the first time ever in the history of Sister Wives, the public was seeing him disintegrate live. The host, sensing history in the making, chose to step aside, and Christine took over. She exposed how Kody's need for control had destroyed trust, how his favoritism tore apart bonds that could never be mended, and how the alleged family unity was merely a veil for dysfunction. Her fans online started trending the hashtags. #Christine wins, #Kody exposed, #SisterWivesTruth. Christine's line, as seen in clips that went viral on TikTok and Instagram, became "You can't silence the truth." And Christine wasn't yet done. Her gaze narrowed a fraction as she leaned forward again, uttering the words that would torment Kody years after the cameras had stopped rolling. You might have thought you could tell my story, Kody, but tonight the truth is mine, and everybody sees you for what you are. The crowd went into applause, some rising from their seats, cheering out loud throughout the studio. Kody sat rigid in his seat, his jaw working, his confidence facade broken. He had entered the studio anticipating that he would call the shots. Instead, he had been naked, laid bare by the bright light of Christine's honesty. As the camera closed in, the split-screen photo of Christine serene and beaming, and Kody sweating and enraged, spoke louder than words ever could. Christine didn't require revenge in the shape of anger. Her revenge was truth, uttered forth in front of live television cameras, in a manner that Kody could never undo. And the world was watching. The studio was already abuzz after Christine's initial explosive claims, but what followed left even the producers grasping for air. Everyone believed Christine had already landed the knockout punch with her defiant words, but she was far from finished. Not even close. The host, attempting to regain the upper hand, redirected the questions to the children, hoping to soften the topic and introduce some family heart into the discussion. Christine? The host started tactfully. How have your kids been adjusting to all of these changes since leaving the plural family? Christine did not pause. Her gaze flashed to Kody, then returned to the crowd. Survive? She repeated, her voice growing strained. They didn't just have to survive. They had to survive. The crowd gasped once more. Kody tensed, his fingers tightening around the arm of his chair. He gave Christine a warning glare, silently pleading with her to stop there, but she didn't. My children, Christine went on, her voice ringing out, grew up seeing favoritism ruin their family. They saw a father who attended some birthdays and not others. They witnessed me weeping in secret because the man who loved us didn't love us first? Repeatedly. And do you know what that does to a child? It gets them thinking that they're not lovable. The room went utterly silent. Even the crowd, who had been loud moments before, sat paralyzed, their faces creased with disbelief and outrage. Kody attempted to brush it off, making a half-hearted smirk. That's absurd, Christine. You're making it seem like I left behind my children. You know I've always cared for them. Christine moved toward him, her face cold but contained. Loved them? Do you even know the last time you spent actual time with all of them? Not one house, not one kid, but all your children, because they do. They remember you canceling, making excuses, and leaving. And no amount of words can take that away. The audience was filled with murmurs. Twitter and Facebook exploded. Christine is telling the truth, and you can see it in her eyes. Kody looks cornered. The kids were always the real victims. Christine's voice softened, but the knives in her words cut deeper. Do you know how many nights I had to sit with my children as they asked why their dad didn't come? Why wasn't he there cheering them on, tucking them in, and telling them he loved them? Do you have any idea how it feels to stare your child in the eye and have no explanation? That's what your unities looked like, Kody. That's the truth behind your ideal TV persona. The host sat back, agog. The audience shifted restlessly, some shaking their heads in incredulity. And Kody? His face reddened, his jaw set tight. For years he had been the one dictating the story, dictating what was and wasn't seen. But Christine was destroying that narrative, fragment by fragment, and millions of people were watching in real time. He attempted again to counterattack. Christine, you're melodramatizing. You're attempting to make me the villain because you were unable to cope with the demands of plural marriage. That's what this is all about. But Christine didn't waver. She moved in closer, her voice low and even, compelling him to look at her. No, Kody, this isn't about plural marriage. This is about you. Your decisions, your abandonment, your inability to be present when it counted most. The crowd erupted in applause, not able to hold back. Cody's face filled the screen as he made another strained smile, but the tension that lurked in the corners of his eyes gave him away. And then Christine delivered the night's biggest bombshell. She uncovered a personal exchange between Kody and one of their offspring, something the cameras never picked up on, something that fans never dreamed. Do you recall, she said, her voice shaking with rage, when one of our kids asked you why you didn't love them in the same way you loved the other ones? Do you remember how you answered? You said they needed to earn your love. Earn it. What kind of father says that to their child? The studio gasped so audibly it overpowered Cody's half-made interruption. He mouthed open, and the words wouldn't come out. His face went white, his confidence broken. He knew Christine wasn't a liar, and he knew in his heart that millions of viewers could sense the truth in her voice. The host's jaw dropped. The crowd went wild, some of them audibly booing, others clapping to support Christine. On Twitter, hashtags such as #CodyExposed and #JusticeForTheKids trended immediately. Christine's eyes brimmed with tears, but her voice never faltered. That moment shattered me. Watching a child's heart break because their own dad had taught them love was conditional. That's not a family, that's not leadership. His cruelty. Kody finally snapped, slamming his hand against the armrest. This is out of context, he shouted, his voice cracking. You're twisting everything to make me look bad. But it was too late. His rage only made him appear worse. Christine didn't flinch, allowing his tirade to stand alone in the air before answering very matter-of-factly. No, Kody, I don't have to spin anything. The truth is enough. And the world just heard it. The crowd applauded once more, the noise ringing out in the studio. Kody sat back, his chest heaving with rapid breaths, definitely shaken. He had no script, no strategy, no spin on this moment. Christine, on the other hand, appeared more robust than ever. She went on, describing a picture of years of emotional abandonment, not only for her, but for the children who had silently borne the brunt of their father's absence. She mentioned milestones that had been missed, graduations attended, tears shed behind door shutters. The more she talked, the more the audience leaned in, their sympathies squarely hers and the children's. Every few sentences, she threw a pointed glance at Kody, as if daring him to deny it. But he stayed silent, his earlier bravado completely gone. For the first time in the show's history, he wasn't the one commanding attention. He was the one exposed, cornered, and powerless. When Christine stopped, the whole studio was with her. The host mumbled something to the producers behind the scenes, realizing that they had just witnessed TV history. Christine had done what viewers had been anticipating for years, making Kody answer for his actions on national television. She wasn't done yet, either. As the segment approached a commercial break, Christine leaned forward one final time, her words imbued with all the pain, all the unshed tears, all the children who had been forgotten. Kody, tonight is not about revenge. It's about truth. And the truth is, you didn't just fail me. You failed our family, and now the world knows. The crowd leapt to their feet in a standing ovation, cheering and applauding, as cameras swept the room. Kody remained still, eyes black, lips compressed into a thin line. He had arrived prepared to stand on his record. Instead, he had stood by and watched it fall apart within 60 minutes. As the screen went dark during commercial break, viewers at home were already swarming Twitter, TikTok, and Facebook with videos of Christine's explosive revelations. And when the show came back on, the energy was only going to gain steam. Because if Session 2 was all about laying out Kody's neglect of the kids, Session 3 would deliver something even worse. Secrets Christine had guarded for years, let loose in front of the public, and Kody. He had nowhere to go. When the program came back from break, the studio was like nothing anyone had ever seen. The crowd hummed with agitated anticipation, their white noise whispering in the air. Fans at home were already clipping Christine's previous bombshell tips. Twitter and Facebook lit up with her toughest exchanges. Everyone in the room now knew that they were not just sitting in on an interview but watching history become made. Kody sat rigid in his chair, elbows crossed, attempting to wear a mask of serenity, but his eyes gave him away, evasively flicking, brimming with panic and fury. He was like a cornered man. A man who had lost grasp of a tale he had been building for more than a decade. Seated across from him, Christine leaned forward ever so slightly, her steady, unflappable presence exuding assurance. She wasn't finished, not by a long shot. The host, visibly shaken by the earlier exchange, hesitated before asking the next question. Christine, you've already shared some powerful truths tonight, but is there more? Are there things the public doesn't know? Christine exhaled slowly, then gazed straight into Kody's eyes. The silence hung there in a long charged moment, before she finally said, yes, there's more that the public doesn't know. And tonight, I think it's time they did. The crowd quieted again, holding their breath for what was to come. Kody fidgeted in his seat, obviously trying to cut her off. Christine, don't do that. You know some things aren't for television. This is family affairs. Christine leaned in at an angle, her eyes squinting. Family business? That's handy, isn't it? For years you used that as a reason to shut me up, to shut us all up. But tonight, I won't be quiet. Not again, not ever. The audience went wild, cheering, and social media exploded in an instant. Hashtags such as #ChristineUnleashed and #CodySecrets trended as millions of viewers globally watched on in more interest. Christine took a deep breath, her tone even but weighted with emotion. Do you recall that night you said to me, before we started filming, that I couldn't speak my mind? That if I even attempted to defy you on camera, you'd make me regret it. Do you recall that, Kody? Kody's eyes went wide. He stuttered. That's not how it went. Christine interrupted him smoothly. It is precisely how it occurred. You bullied me into silence because you were afraid the world would know what you are really like. You wanted to present to the world the image of the strong leader, the flawless father, the man keeping it all together. But behind the cameras, you were controlling, manipulative, and brutal. The audience gasped once more, some of them shaking their heads, others leaning forward with wide eyes. Christine continued, her words increasing in intensity with every statement. You didn't merely want to rule the family, you wanted to control the story. You dictated to us what to say, how to behave, when to smile. And when I refused to cooperate, when I wanted to reveal the reality, you punished me with silence, with abandonment, with coldness so keen that it cut deeper than words. The host slumped forward, obviously stunned. Christine, are you telling me Kody dictated the narrative off camera? Christine nodded resolutely. Yes, he dictated everything. What the world saw was never the entire truth. It was Kody's truth, and anyone who dared question that was silenced, dismissed, or set aside. Kody shook his head violently, his voice rising. That's not true. You're painting me as a monster, Christine. You're twisting everything because you're bitter. Christine didn't even flinch. She reclined, allowing the silence following his tirade to settle over the room. Then, impeccably timing it, she spoke once more. If I were bitter, Kody, I would have left screaming years ago. But I remained. I remained because I was hoping you would change. Because I thought my children deserved a father who loved them. But you never changed. And tonight, I am not bitter. I am free. The crowd erupted, applauding and cheering, as Christine's voice echoed across the studio. And then there were the bombshells. Nobody predicted. Christine started spilling information about clandestine fights, moments that never aired on camera. She exposed how Kody would seclude himself with his preferred wife, leaving the other wives to struggle on their own. She painted pictures of evenings when she pleaded with him to just listen, to hear her, to see her hurting, and he stalked away. But the most appalling tidbit was still to be revealed. Christine leaned forward, her tone low but even. Do you recall, Kody, when you said that the show was your legacy, not our family? Do you recall telling me that as long as the cameras painted you in a good light, nothing else was important? The studio gasped as one. Even the host's hand shot to his mouth in shock. Cody's face went crimson. That's not true. You're lying, Christine. I never said that. Christine glared at him, her steady calm never wavering. You did. And the worst thing is, I believed you for years, when you told me that family was more important than fame. But I see now. You wanted to be the star. And you traded us for it. The audience booed, some even shouting, shame, from their seats. Social media exploded with fury. He used his family for fame. Christine is destroying him, and I love it. This is the real Kody. Kody leaned forward, his voice breaking. You're exaggerating, Christine. You're making me sound like I never cared. Christine's eyes sparkled with unshed tears, but her voice was firm. Because you didn't care. Not the way a husband should. Not the way a father should. You cared about being in charge. You cared about your reputation. But love? True love? You never gave that freely. Not to me. Not to most of your children. The ensuing silence was choking. Kody remained silent, stuck, as Christine's words lingered in the air like the residue of a fire. The audience was aware that they were being exposed to truths that had been hidden for so long, and the group weight of it pushed down on all present. Christine subsequently brought a final crushing blow to that portion. She gazed straight into the camera, her tone calm and resolute. To all of you out there watching, I want you to know something. For years you were given a version of us that wasn't exactly as it seemed. You were given a story that wasn't the truth. But tonight, you're being told it. This is what actually went on behind closed doors. And no spin can undo that now. The crowd stood on its feet, in a thunderous ovation. Twitter streams overflowed with clips, comments, and admiration for Christine's bravery. Headlines popped up online within minutes. Christine reveals Kody's deception on live television. The sister wives' shocking revelation that destroys everything. Christine's revelations destroy Kody's reputation. Kody sat there, defeated and white, his carefully built facade crumbling around him. For years he had dictated the story. But in one night, Christine had reclaimed that power. And there was no taking it back. And yet, the biggest surprise of all, Christine still wasn't finished. For in the next episode, she would finally explain why she remained for so many years, the private fears that trapped her in the union, and the final moment of resistance that compelled her to leave for good. And that reality would alter everything. The studio lights dimmed a little, the tension thick in the air. Christine had already torn down Kody's carefully constructed persona, revealing his need to control and his manipulation of the family narrative. But now, the discussion was going to take a much more personal turn. Her journey, her suffering, and the last straw that led her out. The host leaned forward, his tone low but with an undercurrent of curiosity. Christine, after all you suffered, after all the neglect and silence, what was it? What was that moment that finally drove you away? Christine hesitated, her eyes lowering for the first time. She grasped her hands together, anchoring herself as the memories flowed in. The crowd leaned forward, holding their breath for every word. At last, she looked up, her eyes both filled with pain and strength, and spoke. Breaking point wasn't one moment. It was years of moments, years of being unloved, ignored, and dismissed. But the last straw was when I realized my kids were seeing it all, and they were learning from it. Gasps rang out through the room. The force of her words pierced deep, not only into the audience, but also into each and every parent watching at home. Christine's voice trembled, raw with emotion. I gazed into my daughter's eyes one evening after another. Fight with Kody, And I saw the confusion, the sadness, the way she doubted her own value. She asked me, "Mom, is this what marriage is supposed to be like?" And in that instant, my heart shattered. Because I knew if I remained, I was instructing her that this was love, that this was acceptable. And I was not going to let her think so. The room fell utterly silent. Some gripped their chests. Others wiped at their faces. Social media lit up with words of encouragement. Christine is rescuing her daughters by leaving. This is the strongest thing I've ever heard on television. Kody shifted uncomfortably, his jaw clenching. He attempted to interrupt, but Christine pushed on, her voice growing stronger. "I have endured for years. I told myself I could endure the coldness, the favoritism, the neglect. I said to myself, maybe if I tried harder, if I was more loving, more patient, you would wake up and see me. But then I woke up, and I knew, it wasn't me. It was never me. It was you, Kody, and I wasn't going to let my children grow up, believing that this was love, that this was how a wife was supposed to be treated by her husband." The host, his eyes shining, asked softly, "So that's when you walked away?" Christine nodded slowly, "Yes. But walking out wasn't easy. I'd been programmed to think that walking out meant failure, that if I walked out, I was abandoning my family, my faith, my children. I was scared to death, but I was more scared of what staying would teach them." Her tone became stronger, climbing with intensity. "And that's when I gained my strength. I saw exiting wasn't failure. It was freedom. It was loving myself and my children enough to get us out of it. It was proving to them that they are worth more, that I'm worth more." And once I knew that in my mind, there was no going back. The audience shouted with applause, many of them on their feet, cheering, some screaming words of encouragement, such as, "Yes, Christine, and you're incredible." But Christine wasn't finished. She leaned forward, her eyes fixed on Kody. "Do you want to know exactly when I knew I was finished, Kody? Exactly when I stopped hoping there was any hope." Kody sat paralyzed, his face white. "Christine, was the evening you informed me that intimacy was off the table. Not because of something I had done, but because you no longer found me attractive. You stated it like I was something you could set aside when you were finished with me. Do you recall that?" The audience gasped in shock. The host's mouth fell open. Kody stuttered, "That's not Christine. That's personal." Christine's voice came out strong and biting. "Yes, it was private. But you forced me to live with that shame on a daily basis. After you spoke those words, you made me believe that I wasn't worthy of love, of affection, of even simple respect. And that, Kody, that was the point where I realized my marriage was over." The audience let out again, boos ringing for Kody, cheers for Christine. Energy was alive. Fans on social media typed wildly, "I can't believe he said that to her. Christine deserves so much better. This man is done." Christine inhaled a deep breath, her voice softening but no less intense. "Leaving wasn't about walking away from you, Kody. It was about taking back myself. It was about finally being able to say, I am enough, I am worthy of love, and I don't have to beg for it anymore." Her words cut deep, sending shivers through the room. Even fans who had merely been watching, casual observers of the program, could sense the weight of what she was saying. The host leaned in, voice shaking slightly. "Christine, what was it like, the second you walked out? After all those years, all that suffering, what did freedom taste like?" Christine finally smiled that night. Not a smug smile, or a triumphant one, it was serene. It was like breathing again. After all those years, like moving out into the light, after being imprisoned in darkness. It was like I had come home to myself at last. The audience erupted into applause once more, visibly shaken to tears. Christine's voice became firmer, with determination, "And I want every man, every woman, every person who's watching this to listen, when I tell them this. You are not stuck. You are not defined by another person's love, or lack thereof. You deserve to be loved, to be valued, to be seen. Don't ever let anyone tell you otherwise. If I can leave after almost 30 years of silence, so can you." The studio was in a standing ovation, even the host rose, applauding her bravery. Social media exploded with posts like, "Christine just inspired millions. This is more than a sister wives moment. this is history. She's speaking for all of us who've felt trapped in toxic relationships. At the same time, Kody slumped in his chair, downcast eyes, face burning with defeat. He appeared smaller than ever, his image, his control, his authority dismantled before live witnesses. The man who had once demanded compliance sat helpless as the world applauded Christine's freedom. Christine faced him one last time, her tone level but firm. You attempted to shatter me, Kody. You attempted to silence me. Tonight, though, the world heard my voice, and nothing you can say can ever remove that from me again. The camera zoomed in on her face, radiant with strength and freedom. Families throughout the nation felt it, not merely as a reality TV moment, but as something bigger, something timeless. A tale of breaking chains, claiming identity, and not settling for anything less than true love and respect. And as the host let slip yet another commercial break, the hashtag started trending globally. #Christine Freedom, #Breaking Point, #Sister Wives Truth. Christine wasn't simply recounting her tale, she was reimagining it, and by doing so she had irrevocably shifted the manner in which the world would recall Kody Brown. The studio was still reeling from Christine's heartfelt confessions, her meltdown, and her defiant speech on freedom. Television viewers at home were glued to their screens, not to be missed. Social media was blazing, hashtags trending across the world, news sites scrambling to report the drama in real time. But as handsome as Christine's freedom had been, the evening was far from over, because when Kody Brown saw his legacy, his reputation, and his power disintegrating before the eyes of millions, something within him broke. The host attempted to go on to the next question, but Kody bolted his hand down upon the table, sending everyone into shock. Enough, he bellowed, his voice cracking with rage. The audience gasped. Christine didn't bat an eyelid. She sat quietly, expectantly, as if she had been preparing for this moment all her life. Do you think you can get on this stage and vilify me like a monster? Kody bellowed, his face purpling, veins straining in his throat. You think you can ruin me with falsehoods just to make yourself appear like some sort of hero? The host tried to cut him off, but Kody went on, his words tumbling out in a torrent. I gave you everything, Christine. I gave you a home, a family, security, and this is how you repay me, by humiliating me in front of the world. Christine leaned her head to one side, her face serene but unyielding. A home, safety? You offered me walls without affection, Kody. You offered me isolation, abandonment, and years of duplicity. Don't mask domination as benevolence. The crowd went wild, their cheers covering Kody's rage. Some fans jeered loudly, others yelled, "Tell him, Christine." The air charged with electricity. The tension was agonizing. Kody's face twisted with rage. You've poisoned the kids against me. You've turned them into your army. And now you're trying to turn the whole world against me too. Christine's eyes filled with tears, her voice firm. No, Kody, you did all that by yourself. Your decisions, your favoritism, your meanness, they drove your children away. They witnessed it. They experienced it. I didn't have to say anything. They learned the truth from you. The audience gasped once more, the force of her words slamming into the room. Kody slumped back, panting, desperation replacing his anger. You're distorting, twisting everything. You're making me look like the bad guy. Christine's tone snapped harder. Because that's the part you played, Kody. I didn't distort anything. This is the truth. And the truth isn't always pretty. The host seemed dazed, torn between intervening and allowing the drama to play out. The producers must have been whispering wildly into his earpiece, but the cameras never panned away. They knew that this was gold for television. Christine sat forward now, her gaze pinning Kody's with an icy intensity. You want to know the difference between us, Kody? You crave control. I crave freedom. You want to be revered. I want to be respected. You want to be remembered as a king. But all you'll ever be remembered for is the manner in which you treated the people who loved you most. The studio was quiet. Even Kody's anger stuttered for a moment. Christine had delivered a hammer blow. Online fans went crazy. This is the knockout punch. Kody is done. Christine just finished him with one sentence. But Kody wasn't done. He stood up suddenly, walking back and forth on stage. His voice broke with the force of his tantrum. You're rewriting history, Christine. presenting yourself as perfect while I'm the one who takes the blame. What of your weaknesses? What of your failure as a wife? Christine shook her head slowly, her voice steady, near mournful. I was imperfect. Yes, I had flaws. But here's the difference, Kody. I acknowledged mine. I attempted to change. I attempted to learn. You never did. And that's why we're standing here today. The crowd erupted into cheers, shouting Christine. Christine, Kody went pale, as he knew the tables had turned entirely. The more he talked, the more the world was against him. The host, feeling the historical significance of the moment, leaned in. Christine, if you could tell Kody one last thing tonight, what would it be? Christine did not flinch. She faced Kody, her voice firm, her gaze unshifting. Kody, you said once that I'd live to regret leaving you. But look around. Do you see regret in my eyes? No. I see strength. I see freedom. And I see a future where my children get to see what love actually looks like. The only thing I regret is staying as long as I did. The audience was in a roar of thundering applause. Some standing, others crying out words of encouragement through tears. Kody was devastated, his chest rising and falling, his rage something else now. Fear. He had lost the room. He had lost the story. And now, on live TV, he had lost the last fight with the woman he once attempted to silence. Christine, meanwhile, sat upright, her shoulders squared, her face radiant with peace. She had suffered decades of pain, humiliation, and silence. But tonight, she had shared her truth, and the world had listened. As the host concluded the show, his voice ringing with wonder, he expressed, Christine, tonight you've taught us all what courage is. Thank you for sharing your truth. The camera panned in on Christine for the final time. She smiled, not with retaliation, but with freedom. The vision of her sitting upright, unscathed, while Kody sat shattered next to her, would be forever etched in viewers' minds. Social media blew up once again. Videos of the confrontation went viral in an instant. Christine ends Kody with final blow. The sister wives moment that will never be forgotten. Christine's revenge live. Kody never saw it coming. And so it was done. The episode concluded, not with Kody's booming voice in command, but with Christine's reality ringing out across living rooms, social media screens, and front pages around the globe. For decades, Kody had spoken. But that evening, on live television, Christine had spoken instead, and the world would never look at him, or her, the same again. The cameras cut, the studio lights went out, but the aftershocks of Christine's live bombshells were only getting started. Tens of millions of viewers had witnessed the showdown in real time. The hashtag #ChristineWins trended globally. Fans replayed moments repeatedly, analyzing every sentence, every eyebrow, every shocked look on Kody's face. Even those who had been fans of Sister Wives for years conceded that they had never seen Christine behave this way before. The composed, calm, fearless woman speaking truth to power. The same Christine who had been quiet for decades was now an unstoppable force, and the world was taking notice. Social media blew up instantly. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all lit up with responses. Christine just broke the internet. Kody has no defense now. I can't believe she said that to him, live. This is one of the most gratifying moments in reality TV history. YouTube videos of the confrontation started trending within minutes. Fans made reaction videos, dissecting Christine's every word. Some posted collections of Kody's dumbstruck faces, the visible evidence that Christine had not only emerged victorious in the battle of words, but also in the battle for emotions. Media sources started reporting. Headlines scrolled across screens globally. Sister Wives bombshell. Christine reveals Kody Brown live on TV. Reality TV showdown leaves fans gobsmacked. Christine Brown's revenge. The truth finally spilled. Talk shows and podcasts broke down the episode, arguing over Kody's behavior and Christine's bravery. Some referred to it as a defining moment in reality television history. Others celebrated Christine as an icon of empowerment, demonstrating that someone should never keep quiet if something is wrong. While fan responses weren't all positive, neither were they uncritical. Heated discussion raged over the effects of what had been revealed. Some believed Kody had been unfairly maligned, while others claimed the on-air confession justified long-standing suspicions regarding the family structure. But one thing was certain: the story had irrevocably changed. Christine's own social media profiles were flooded with new followers overnight. Messages flooded in from everywhere in the world, expressing gratitude and admiration. Numerous claimed that her bravery gave them the strength to tell their own truth, or leave an abusive situation in which they felt imprisoned. These kinds of comments inundated. "Thank you for giving me the permission to leave. Your post gave me the strength to take back my life. I've been quiet for years, but seeing you speak out transformed me." Kody, by contrast, was subjected to a firestorm of backlash. The criticism came fast and unrelenting. Memes, reaction videos, and articles painted him as the man who'd been defeated by his own wife's truth. Even dedicated fans who'd defended him in the past were second-guessing him. Producers of the series allegedly conducted emergency meetings, fearing the long-term implications of the episode. Sponsors, advertisers, and network executives all knew that what had begun as a mundane interview had become a cultural phenomenon. And it wasn't only about ratings. It was about the manner in which Christine had drastically shifted public opinion concerning Kody and the family structure. Christine herself remained calm amid the chaos. In interviews following the episode, she emphasized that her goal wasn't revenge, it was truth. "I wanted people to see what really happened behind closed doors," she told reporters. "This isn't about tearing anyone down. It's about showing that you can reclaim your voice and your life, even after decades of being silenced." The kids, although young, were not insensitive to the publicity. Christine ensured that she protected them from media coverage, while also assuring them that they were experiencing something real, and their feelings were felt. She clarified that the world was witnessing their story, but that their privacy and well-being were her main concern. Meanwhile, Kody was said to have withdrawn from public events for some time, dealing with scathing criticism from the public, critics, and even former fans. His efforts at defending himself on social media were not received kindly. The more he sought to assert himself, the more the narrative appeared to go out of his control. Throughout the internet, Sister Wives fan bases argued about what the after effects of the split implied for the future of the Sister Wives series. Would the television show return? Might Kody regain his reputation? Might Christine begin building new media, speaking, or advocacy careers? The questions swirled endlessly, and all seemed to lead toward an irreversible realignment of power. Christine's story became a study in resilience. Internet forums picked her apart. Serene and resolute, honest without being spiteful, commanding respect through assertiveness, not belligerence. Professionals noted that she had achieved mastery of speaking her truth while being credible, a balance few reality TV personalities are able to achieve. At the same time, brands and networks began to notice her power. Interview requests, bookings, and partnership opportunities started rolling in. Christine's narrative had transformed her from a past reality television celebrity. It had transformed her into an icon of empowerment, bravery, and honesty. Its public effect was immediate and long-lasting. Social media buzzed with discussions of family dynamics, emotional abuse, and women taking back their voices. Christine's experience was held up as an example of how to have healthy relationships, be emotionally intelligent, and stand up to abusive authority figures. Kody, on the other hand, had his own turning point. He was reported to have started questioning how people perceived him, not just his family, but the public at large. For the very first time, he was presented with a mirror of the repercussions of his decisions, the effect of his actions, and the irretrievable loss of narrative control. And as the world talked, Christine forged ahead with purpose. She leveraged the spotlight to promote honesty, emotional health, and empowerment. Interviews, podcasts, and speaking tours further broadcast her message. No one should have to suffer for years of neglect, control, or emotional manipulation. Her voice, once silenced, now reached millions. By the close of the week, the episode had been the highest-rated reality television show of the season. Trends on social media continued for days, and discussion regarding Kody, Christine, and plural marriage dynamics topped entertainment headlines. Christine had not only emerged victorious on live television, she had rewritten her story, reclaimed herself, and redirected public opinion altogether. And the enduring lesson was unmistakable. Truth, courage, and perseverance can bring down even the most entrenched power. Christine's on-air revelations were not only a triumph over Kody, they were a triumph for every audience member who had ever felt voiceless, ignored, or powerless. As the dust settled, fans still celebrated Christine's bravery. Messages and comments rolled in, "She's my hero. Someone finally stood up for what is right. I can't stop viewing the clips." The show had crossed from entertainment into cultural phenomenon. Christine had entered that studio with one goal: to tell her truth. She exited with the world listening, millions inspired, and a legacy that would live longer than any reality show. In the meantime, Kody's silence was deafening. The former mighty patriarch now had to face the repercussions of years of control, favoritism, and manipulation. The narrative had forever changed. Christine had not only taken the moment, she had taken history. Weeks had elapsed since the fiery live television face-off, but the world had still not moved on. Christine's expose had set off a ripple effect that no one could shake off. Footage of the standoff was shared endlessly on social media, every replay solidifying her strength and Kody's disintegration. Christine's life was changed. Her bravery on the national television screen had made her something more than a once-upon-a-time reality TV personality. She had become a symbol, a voice for all those caught up in situations where silence was the demanded option, where control was exerted, and where personal value was always called into question. The subsequent interviews were candid and unvarnished. Christine was frank about taking her life back, establishing boundaries, and taking emotional well-being seriously. Freedom isn't just leaving someone behind, she explained in one of the many interviews that circulated widely. It's owning who you are and refusing to let anyone again lower your value. The crowd was mesmerized. She was applauded for honesty, grace, and bravery by fans. Celebrities, influencers, and mental health activists all joined in her call to action, spreading the news worldwide. Hashtags #Christine Legacy and #TruthWins trended online, testifying that her story continued to have impact. While that was taking place, Kody's universe had changed in direct opposition. Following the live TV meltdown, his efforts at getting ahead of the story again collapsed. Each comment, each time he went public, seemed to validate what Christine had revealed. The story he had constructed over decades was being torn apart within weeks. A few fans attempted to come to his defense, referencing his motivations or his earlier efforts at juggling multiple families. But the vast majority of public opinion rested with Christine. His silence or angry denials only served to reinforce the notion that there was some basis to Christine's accusations. Behind closed doors, Kody was said to have undergone fierce interrogation from his family and closest confidants. Former friends questioned his authority and intentions. Those who had once looked up to him as patriarch were beginning to question the price of domination and partiality. The former authoritarian figurehead on Sister Wives now was a cautionary example of pride and abandonment. Christine, though, was not standing still. Her empowerment was not merely about individual freedom, it was about forging a new way. She concentrated on advocacy, speaking appearances, and initiatives that motivated other people to reclaim their voices. She became a guide to women who were dealing with messy relationships, giving them advice, reassurance, and hard-won strategies for freedom. Her every move was documented on social media. Clips from her speeches, Instagram messages, and interviews circulated millions of times. Fans thanked her for her bravery, stating that they were inspired to exit toxic relationships, tell their truths, or take care of their own emotional health. Christine's power had reached far beyond the original TV confrontation. She had become a cultural phenomenon. Kody, meanwhile, felt the long-term effects of his decisions. Ratings for Sister Wives programs that included him dropped, social media criticism mounted, and sponsors questioned his participation in current projects. Efforts to regain public support were unsuccessful, demonstrating that once credibility is lost, it's nearly impossible to regain. But in the midst of the chaos, Christine remained gracious. She never gloated, never taunted, never let the story become one of revenge. Her concern was still on truth, openness, and empowerment. That differentiation, the difference between telling truth and exacting revenge, solidified her place in the public eye as being not only courageous but admirable. As time passed, the story of Christine ignited wider debates regarding emotional neglect, family life, and challenges of having multiple wives. Mental health professionals, social commentators, and activists drew reference to her experiences as a demonstration of strength. Academic debates, panels, and writings quoted her bravery, and thus her story became both informative and inspiring. Viewers speculated endlessly as to what could happen next. Would Kody try for another comeback? Could reconciliation be possible? What about the children? How would their views change over time? But Christine's path indicated that she was concerned with moving forward, not backward. Her life had transitioned from one that revolved around someone else's determinism to one revolving around her own decisions. Her last message to the world was simple but profound. You cannot change the past, you can only claim your present and create your future. And when you speak your truth with courage, the world will listen. Kody's story, on the other hand, was one of caution. His shortcomings, public humiliation, and failure to adjust revealed the eventual toll of control, manipulation, and emotional abandonment. Even years after, allusions to Christine's live television victory were a highlight of his public career. Finally, Session 7 demonstrates the lasting strength of Christine's actions, not only winning a battle on live television, but redefining her legacy, empowering others, and creating a cultural moment that broke through reality television. It was a tale of guts, freedom, and the redemptive power of truth. The final takeaway, speaking your truth, even in the face of fear, has consequences far beyond the immediate moment. It can change narratives, alter perceptions, and inspire millions. Christine Brown proved this, leaving an indelible mark on fans, critics, and the world at large. Months went by since Christine's fiery live TV showdown with Kody, yet its effect remained felt. What had started as a jaw-dropping television moment became a full-fledged cultural phenomenon, influencing the way people talked about family life, emotional abuse, and personal empowerment. Christine's journey became a template for bravery and honesty, transcending reality TV. The online storm that happened overnight, the evening of the airing, never really dissipated. Glimpses of Christine's words became viral again and again, retweeted with commentary, fan feedback, and analysis. Individuals analyzed her voice, her expressions, her measured but pointed delivery, observing that she kept her cool while deconstructing Kody's version with surgical delicacy. Fans referred to her as the voice of the silenced, a badge she never necessarily sought, but indeed wore. Media still kept referring to the clash months after that. Commentators, talk show hosts, and pundits celebrated her courage, calling her a figure of female empowerment for women ensnared in abusive relationships. Columns were not all about melodrama. Columns discussed how her case reminded them of the principles of agency, self-respect, and speaking truth to power. Christine herself started thinking about her experience in the public eye. She characterized her choice to speak out as a duty, rather than a grudge. "I knew the world needed to see the truth," she told one interviewer. "Not because I wanted revenge, but because I wanted to reclaim my story and show others that silence isn't the only option." The effect reached far beyond the TV viewership. Mental health professionals, social workers, and family therapists named her verbal sparring an educational lesson in the consequences of neglect and special treatment in complicated family dynamics. Panels and webinars on the internet dissected her comments, employing them as case studies in emotional strength, communication, and activism. Viewers everywhere were motivated to make a change in their own lives. Testimonies came in of people leaving abusive relationships, standing up to emotional abuse, or standing by loved ones who had faced similar battles. Christine's words, previously limited to a television set, became an inspiration of strength to millions. Even among the fan base of Sister Wives, the legacy was irreparable. Speculation turned into scrutiny as conversations about Kody's actions changed. Individuals who had previously stood up for him were coming to accept the patterns Christine uncovered. The narrative had forever changed, changing how people perceived and rebranding who the viewer supported. Christine's influence also spilled over into the entertainment arena. She was invited to join interviews, podcasts, and speaking events that focused on personal development, empowerment, and advocacy. Executives at media companies saw her as more than a once reality television star. They saw a person whose narrative had real-world significance, impact, and depth. Kody, on the other hand, still struggled with the consequences. The formerly unassailable patriarch suffered long-term damage to his reputation. Trying to manage the story failed, what he said publicly was questioned, and fans increasingly looked to Christine as the reliable voice. His reputation on and off the show was forever changed. In spite of all the publicity and scrutiny, Christine kept the attention on personal development and her family's welfare. She put her children's emotional well-being first, making sure they would not be used for publicity, but their experiences being legitimized. Through her resilience, communication, and strength modeling, she not only took back her story, but empowered the next generation as well. The cultural effect of Christine's actions continued to have repercussions. Plural marriage, family responsibility, and accountability for emotions were all discussed in more depth. Scholars cited her face-off in their explanations of contemporary family structures and the influence of the media. Social media platforms featured her story in empowerment and truth-telling campaigns. For the viewers, the message was clear. Honesty, self-respect, and courage can revolutionize the trajectory of a story. Christine's courage in standing up to Kody, revealing years of manipulation, and putting the emotional well-being of her children first, demonstrated that truth can bring down long-established structures of control. As years came in place of months, Christine's legacy was cemented. She took something that might have been left in private or covered up and turned it into a public testament of personal power. Her narrative became the go-to point for conversation when discussing empowerment, self-emancipation, and emotional integrity. Even Kody's place in the story was redefined by her bravery. He was a warning of what it is like when control, favoritism, and neglect are not rebuked. His shortcomings for all to see solidified responsibility and the outcome of disregarding emotional fact. Christine's greatest victory wasn't so much in bringing down Kody. It was in taking back her life, rewriting her story, and empowering millions to do the same. Her testimony proved that freedom is within reach, even decades of silence, fear, and domination later. In looking back on her experience, Christine underscored the lasting lesson: truth matters, courage matters, standing up for yourself and your family matters. It may not be easy and it may not be comfortable, but it is always worth it. The world knew that evening, not only as a reality TV battle, but as a turning point. It was a time when a silenced voice became unbreakable, when courage prevailed over control, and when one woman's refusal to be diminished inspired thousands of others to reclaim their own lives. Finally, Session 8 crystallizes the lasting legacy of Christine Brown, her empowerment, her impact, and the lessons she taught the world. By standing up, she changed attitudes, rewrote public opinion, and left an unforgettable mark on culture, media, and the hearts of millions of viewers. Christine's life taught that a single voice, if uttered with courage and truth, can change everything. And that is the legacy of this indelible confrontation. By this point, Christine's on-air face-off with Kody hadn't only reached fans, it had reached an entire online world. As soon as she finally said her piece, the internet went ablaze. In a matter of hours, #Christine wins, #Kody exposed, and #SisterWivesTruth took over trending lists on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. Fans from all over the world responded in real time. Videos of Christine disassembling calmly Kody's account went viral, with millions of shares. Each look, Each word, each hesitation was picked apart, made into GIFs, memes, reaction videos, and commentary clips. Memes swamped the internet, featuring Kody's stunned faces, Christine's unflinching stare, and her perfectly delivered zingers. Fan sites created galleries with such titles as Top 10 Moments, Christine Destroyed Kody Live, and When Silence Became Her Power. Social media followers couldn't seem to get enough, watching the showdown over and over. On TikTok, trends started with fans lip-syncing Christine's most famous lines, mimicking her reactions, or acting out the dramatic confrontation in funny but not disrespectful manners. Influencers commended her calmness, dubbing her a masterclass in running with a story. Reaction videos raked in thousands of views in a matter of days, fanning out debates, praises, and rampant discussion. Fan boards were on fire. Comments about family life, plural marriage, and the world of reality television were now filled with Christine's words. Posts analyzed her tone, the timing of her disclosures, and how well she used Kody's anger against him without getting angry herself. Critics declared it a masterful deployment of restraint, timing, and emotional intelligence. Even global media carried the story. Headlines splashed in nations in Europe, Asia, and North America. Christine Brown becomes reality TV legend after exposing Kody. Live TV showdown leaves fans worldwide stunned. The Moment Reality TV Made History podcasts spent whole episodes deconstructing the confrontation, exploring the social and cultural significance. Viewers argued on whether this was the most impactful moment in reality TV history, with many believing it had set a benchmark for revealing manipulation and control in the public eye. The cultural explosion wasn't just reflected on the news, it ignited real-life conversations among the audience about their own realities. Posts flooded in from individuals claiming Christine's courage inspired them to speak their own truths, escape abusive relationships, or stand up to authoritative figures in their own lives. Experiences flooded in from across the globe about people taking back their voice after being inspired by Christine. Supporters made hashtags such as #SpeakYourTruth and #FreedomOverControl, posting individual triumphs along with footage of the confrontation. Social media movements hailed Christine as a contemporary icon of empowerment. Women's online communities, emotional abuse survivors, and advocates for family wellness started referring to her confrontation as a demonstration of courage and integrity. Memes and social commentary merged to form viral cultural artifacts. There was a meme of Christine being strong with the caption, "When you're composed but the truth is harder than a wrecking ball." There was another of Kody flailing with the caption, "Attempting to control the narrative but forgot who you were working with." These went viral, gaining entry into not only fan spaces but mainstream digital culture. Fan art also went into orbit. Digital artists recreated some of the iconic moments from the standoff, including Christine's composure, Kody's shock, and the tension in the studio. Some of the art went viral, posted on platforms, making the confrontation a visual cultural touchstone. Even YouTube personalities and influencers beyond the sister wives sphere weighed in. Reaction videos featured experts, stand-up comedians, and media commentators all applauding Christine's grace and emotional intelligence. Headlines such as Christine Brown's masterclass in speaking truth and Kody Brown versus Christine, who actually won, topped trending video charts. Web forums also generated more in-depth discussions concerning gender dynamics, control, and emotional labor in marriage. Christine's behavior was examined not only as reality TV drama, but as a case study in real-life empowerment and advocacy. Mental health practitioners cited the confrontation as a model for talking to clients about healthy boundaries and self-respect. The cultural resonance extended to schools and universities as well. Media studies texts referenced Christine's televised battle as a quintessential example of narrative control being subverted, while sociology lessons addressed family relationships, emotional manipulation, and social influence. Her encounter transcended television as a spectacle, it became a lesson. International responses reflected those in the US, UK, Australian, Indian, and Canadian fans were shocked at the confrontation, lauding Christine for her bravery and analyzing the interplay between her and Kody. The confrontation was a global buzz, being shared across platforms and languages worldwide, evidencing the global appeal of truth and empowerment. Social media also tracked Kody's reaction, or lack of it. Defenses mounted online were greeted by ridicule, criticism, and additional viral material. Fans observed that each time he attempted to get back in charge of the story, Christine's earlier quotes and footage were passed around again, cementing her control over the story. The long-term cultural boom was inevitable. Products, nods, and online content hailed Christine as a hero, cementing her status as an enduring cultural icon outside of Sister Wives. She was no longer just a reality television personality, she was a symbol of freedom, emotional intelligence, and authenticity. Months later, too, the anniversary of the confrontation was commemorated online. Footage was replayed for comment, memes were reposted, and fresh enthusiasts stumbled over the incident, keeping it continuously topical. It served as a touchstone for anyone voicing dissent against control, manipulation, or years of silencing. Christine's tale had set off a ripple effect that reverberated far beyond the television show. From fan responses to cultural commentary, scholarly debates, social media mobilization, and real-life empowerment narratives, the confrontation had become a phenomenon. Her bravery had inspired dialogue, debate, and action globally, cementing the confrontation as one of reality TV's most indelible moments. Months had elapsed since Christine's explosive live television showdown with Kody, but the effects of that evening were still causing ripples around the globe. What began as a one-off reality TV episode had morphed into something greater, something that wasn't only changing the Sister Wives franchise, but also talk of marriage, family structure, and self-empowerment worldwide. For Christine, the future was brighter than it had been in decades. Her bravery had solidified her as a symbol of strength, motivating millions to take back their voices and live as themselves. Interviews, podcasts, and television appearances promoted her message of emotional truth, self-respect, and the necessity of standing up against control. She was not simply a contestant on a reality television show, she was a cultural icon, a living embodiment of empowerment in action. Social media kept her message loud. Excerpts of her steady but sharp battles with Kody were shared repeatedly, and terms such as #Christine wins, #Speak Your Truth, and #freedom over control became perpetual conversation subjects. Supporters posted personal experiences of bravery, relating their own stories to what Christine stood for. Her presence was no longer confined to reality television, she had become an inspiration around the world. At the same time, Kody was confronted with the long-term repercussions of his actions. The backlash against him didn't subside. Efforts to regain control of the narrative were confronted with scrutinization, skepticism, and ridicule. His public reputation had been permanently changed. Even dedicated fans began to question his choices, his behavior toward family members, and his leadership of the plural marriage. The family children also were included in the continuing narrative. Christine's public protest taught them that integrity, self-respect, and courage were more important than keeping up appearances. She taught them about accountability, emotional intelligence, and the strength of truth, lifelong lessons for them. Christine's advocacy went beyond personal freedom. She started attending panels, webinars, and forums on family health, emotional resilience, and empowerment. Her experience was used as a case study on the value of speaking truth to power, standing up for oneself, and taking care of one's mental and emotional health. Experts and educators quoted her history in lecturing others about toxic relationships, emotional abuse, and structural control in families. Kody, by contrast, became a cautionary tale. His failure to see the emotional harm he had wrought, and his efforts to hold on to control, stood out as the price of prioritizing power over compassion. Popular opinion reduced him to a man brought low by his own hubris. A diametrical opposite from the image of powerful free Christine she now represented. The entertainment media were also affected. Producers, networks, and executives at media outlets realized the potential of real storytelling, especially when it is truth-telling and empowering. Christine's story changed the way reality television was viewed, not merely as drama, but as a site of social commentary and cultural impact. Internationally, the story of Christine inspired discussions regarding marriage, emotional abuse, and personal power. European, Asian, and North American fans quoted her stand in arguments over healthy relationships and empowerment. Global media featured her as a model of bravery and authenticity, and showed that the morals from her story cut across cultural and geographical divides. Christine's influence expanded over time in tangible ways. Advocacy groups started reaching out to work together, producing campaigns for survivors of emotional neglect, and showcasing her story as a shining example of hope. Her message was unmistakable: finding your voice again, speaking up for yourself, and making emotional health a priority are strength, not selfishness. Kody's legacy, on the other hand, turned into a cautionary tale. His efforts to manage the narrative had spectacularly backfired. Public discourse set him up as an example of what is possible when authority trumps empathy, control trumps love, and appearances trump truth. His hold on people waxed while Christine's waned. Christine's lasting legacy was personal too. She discovered peace, purpose, and clarity in her life. After years of silence and manipulation, she was finally able to pursue her passions, her children, and her advocacy work. The confrontation hadn't been only a public win, it had been a personal freedom, enabling her to reclaim her identity and her future. The cultural heritage was indisputable. Christine's encounter served as a touchstone when empowerment, relationships, and media power were discussed. Memes, viral videos, and online threads kept the moment alive for decades. Educators, counselors, and influencers used her tale as a potent reminder of resilience, courage, and speaking truth to power. Even years after, online anniversaries of the confrontation were observed. Fans posted videos, reenacted famous lines, and talked about the lessons from Christine's courage. She had left a lasting cultural impression, turning one live TV moment into a worldwide phenomenon. Ultimately, Session 10 shows that Christine's confrontation was more than a single triumph, it was the start of a lasting legacy. By standing up for herself, taking back her life, and choosing integrity and empowerment over oppression and pain, she transformed public opinion, inspired millions, and proved that courage can change not only one life, but the world. Her tale was a lesson timeless: whatever the barriers, whatever the years of silence or domination, holding to truth and standing in your own power can make change that echoes far past the instant. Christine's legacy is a reminder of the lasting strength of courage, truth, and self-respect.